We had a question that came in for existing small businesses, and the question was, for people who are in an existing small business in Mesquite, what things might they do to succeed in a tough economy?
Well, you know, I don't know how many people are familiar with our story and how we came to Mesquite, my brother and I, and how we bought the course, but I'll just give the highlights of it. When we came here, basically we had $80 million of debt when we took over globally with a lot of businesses. And it's been a remarkable long turnaround. I was 30 years old, my brother was 27. Basically, I quit. I used to be, not a talk, but I was one of the, arguably the top soccer agent of probably the US. I had a thriving practice, but my family got into a bit of a jam. For those who've been here for a long time, that's no secret. What I tell folks is, and believe me, we had multiple lawsuits, a lot of people every week, employees wondering if they were, the check was going to clear. Banks were yelling. I mean, things were really rough. I remember one Christmas, trying to figure out every way to scrap a payroll together so folks who were twice my age, they could give their grandchildren a Christmas present. That wasn't me taking a salary or doing something. I remember paying for all of my personal expenses at the time. I was traveling back and forth from Los Angeles quite a bit every week. And the thing that my brother and I sat down to turn it around, and we were in deep trouble. And it's remarkable now to look back on the situation that we were in, but we had a game plan. The first thing is we focused on getting smaller, not getting bigger. The second thing is we decided to know what we know and know what we don't know. And the things that we knew in business was simple. Be real good at them and be the best. So, I wasn't a real estate guy. I didn't do a lot of high finance. I was a sports agent. But I do how to market really well. I was really good at that. So that was something that I could say, how can I help the cause here? So my role, I got, signed to Wolf Creek to go manage that and take the brand and do what I did for many athletes across the country and take my training and say, how do we make Wolf Creek Golf Club, which was a laughingstock at the time, into the most successful golf operation in the country and one of the best known brands in the world. We set high expectations. My brother, he handled the real estate side because he was a commercial broker and real estate person. I unfortunately had to deal with a lot of the litigations and the various issues because I was a sports agent. I was used to not being the most popular guy in the room, so it was real easy for me at that time. The second thing is, I remember my wife, things were down, days were tough, but she went out and got me some bump. I was telling the gals earlier before this, I said there was a refrigerator sticker that I'll never forget, the famous saying from Winston Churchill, never, never, ever give up. Don't quit. Don't quit. We can do it. It's not going to be easy, but the knot's going to get a little smaller, and you're going to fight. And you're going to fight for what you believe in, and not every decision is going to be a popular one. As an example, we left Gulf Mesquite, Nevada. For the record, why did we do that? Well, we actually got kicked out, but that's a true story. But we wanted to get kicked out. I can tell this 10 years, that's easier to tell it 10 years later, isn't it? But since this is going to be a forum about honesty a little bit, and you don't just get the political correct answer, the reality is my brother and I saw something here, and we realized that if we really want to make Wolf Creek go, we needed to control our own destiny. That means we needed to own our own phone number. That means we had to start Wolf Creek Vacations. I don't know if John Paul's here tonight, but John Paul is a dear friend, somebody I truly love as a person, started Wolf Creek Vacations with Joel, and that reason was done, that we wanted the customer to call us and we could control the customer experience. And at the same time, we wanted to control our ad costs and be really in charge of our brand. And so we took control of our own destiny and we did something bold, and we decided to, I called, basically, I think the original thing was we asked Greg if we could have about 14, about a block of 14 or 20 rooms. Basically the deal is if you like it, in 6 months if we do something for you, then we'll come back and do something long-term and more substantial. And Greg was saying, what does he have to lose, right? And at that time, black gaming was very prominent here. And a lot of people thought that that would be the end of Wolf Creek. In fact, to be honest, there were several phone calls made behind the scenes thinking that we were crazy and we didn't know what we were doing. But I go back to what I just told you. The one thing I knew was sports marketing. The one thing that Corey Clementson was good at was sports. I had training. I knew that they were on my turf. We got the trademark to Wolf Creek secretly done. We did all of these things behind the scenes. We stuck to what we knew. And then we said, Chad and I sat down and said, look, instead of trying to do 500 businesses, let's do what we're good at. There are one or two, let's make them profitable and focus on being efficient. Let's get our staff to realize that we can barter for things. Because at the time, back then, it's not as, today is real easy for the new employees that come here, geez, they want something, boom, it usually happens pretty quickly. Back then, I mean, getting a new computer for $1,000 was a big deal. I mean, we had these relics that were like something out of 1975, these old giant IBM things. I don't know what they were, but it was so bad. We had horrible phones. But over time, we got a little better. And so the idea for small businesses, when you're in a tough situation today, it's easy to get down. Okay, I was as down as anything on a daily basis, but I'm glad that I personally, like I said, there are a lot of great people. You remember me saying that? And I know I go off on tangents, but I got to tell you something. There are a lot of great people in this community. And I've had the pleasure of meeting so many good people, and I'm glad we're here in Mesquite. I am proud to be here. Because it's a personal statement of perseverance, and we've got, and I think that's why we're here tonight, is to try to hopefully give you some advice and share some of our experiences and say that we can do this. And so again, I think there's a lot of things you can do in your business in terms of trying to turn it around. I mean, I don't know, and maybe Greg's question, if there are people that have small businesses that have specific questions, I know we'd probably be happy to answer them, but at least that's my story.
It's funny. Our story is fairly similar. I don't know how many of you have been here since February 1997. I know Kathy Poindexter, Business One. Kathy was our first director of marketing. And when we opened, we were the fourth of the new casinos, and it was. I think the town was maybe half of the size it is today. So when you think of the way it is now, with 3 casinos, and you could argue that there's maybe more capacity than there are, there's business. Back then it was half the size and 4 casinos, and when we thought that things could not get worse, we got a 5th casino a year later. And I still remember the first, the first year. I mean, I mean, there were times where we weren't sure we were going to make it. There are 3 casinos, 2 went out of business, and you're just sort of, it was one of those games you're looking around of who's going to survive. So if I use that as a backdrop, and if any of you have felt that way, like how are you going to survive? I think Corey's advice about being small is very relevant, but maybe I'll describe it a little bit differently. Okay, and that is, instead of just thinking about customers, like I'm just going to use the example of I need to sell more furniture. Okay, if you really think about your customer as one person and doing it really well. So that there's no reason that one customer would ever go someplace else. I think that helps you with 2 customers, and 3 customers, and 4 customers. And I'll never forget the focus group that Kathy put together. And my father and I sat in a room, and they asked them questions about why they liked Eureka. And he's not here today, so I can say it, otherwise he might be embarrassed. I think it was Pete Bowles, if any of you know him. And when we asked him, why do you like Eureka? He said, because there's no one here. It's so great. He says, I can walk down, and we built that property to have like 800 or 900 slot machines, and we had 500 because that's what we could afford to open with. And Pete said, and then what we did is we spread them around so that it wouldn't have big pockets of space. And he said, it's great. When I walk around, no one bumps me. He said, I have some friends who are in wheelchairs, and I can walk side by side when we're talking, and they feel completely comfortable. It's wonderful the way you designed it to have aisles that are this wide. And then he said, also, is that the air system you put in here is so great that, I don't like smoke, and it is so much fresher here. And meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, all these things are true, but it's sort of the ultimate backhanded compliment, right? It's like, we like this place because there are not enough people that you can't smell smoke. They don't have enough money to fill the place with slot machines, so I can walk around and not have any problems. And then, what else? He goes, and then there's some of the backhanded compliments, though, are probably ones that you build a business on, and that is the floor staff and the bartenders really spend a lot of time with me. Okay? That's another one where there's no customers. But, the part about them spending time and caring, because really we could not, Kathy, could we afford to lose any customers? No, we couldn't. So,
they were loyal customers.
Yes.
Loyal,
yes.
Very strong loyal customer base.
And I think making sure we never lost any one customer is something that we really try to do now. I mean, there's sometimes that things don't, fit with the kind of, maybe we position a restaurant, or we do other things. Sometimes, when we remodeled the hotel to make it really fit what we thought that the golf, resort customer really wanted, there were people who were really upset that it was no longer the Holiday Inn Express, because they liked it. Or maybe they liked that it was never full, and so, it's so quiet, it's like a morgue. And sometimes those things change. But I do believe that for me, thinking about every customer as a single person and what they would want and what would make it better really helps me imagine growing a business of many people who are like that. But I try to make sure it fits 100%. The expectations of that most demanding customer we have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience?